traditional constructions worthwhile and who benefits from traditional construction? Your eyes and observe nature. Take photos, post them online. Maybe someone else will recognize the species. Take photos and try to identify the species yourself using the internet and books. People from the local Nature Conservation Association may be able to help. A local biology teacher may also be able to help. Which species benefit from unpainted wood? Still in 1950s, there was a lot of dead and peeled wood in the agricultural landscape. Dead wood surfaces binds, for example, dust. Usually structures and buildings are partially in the sun. Wood creates good living conditions for various species, especially mosses and lichens thrive on them. Hare ice, also known as ice wool or frost bird, is a type of ice that forms on dead wood and takes the shape of fine, silky hair. Species benefit from tradition building. Some species are known only for construction wood and not even for natural wood. For example, Spincrytina anglica, which has disappeared from Finland, and in 2010 the extremely endangered Schepelium notarisi is no longer found in Finland. Different varieties thrive at different heights above the ground. The species vary depending on the location. For example, is it the top of the or the bottom side of the log? The bottom side does not get rainwater. The south side of the building and structure has fewer species. The north and east sides has more species. Here are these two different kinds of rare things growing on wood. There are also different varieties thriving on unpainted and painted buildings. If the building is painted with red natural color, various lichens will also start to grow in this building over time. In Finland, we are traditionally using this red color, which is cooked with rye flour and water and also ochre, red ochre, and a little bit of flax oil is also added. This has to be cooked for really a long time, and people used to do that. They cook themselves this color, and it is then very long lasting, and you don't have to scrape the wood, so if you want to repaint it, you can just paint it on it. So here are also some other species that like to grow on these red painted buildings, and otherwise they grow on stones, but they can also go on these red painted buildings. And then if the color is faded, then there are a bunch of other species that grow on that. You can again see two different types of lichens, very beautiful. Species are rare, and if you find this Cymphalium inquintans on the wall, it suggests that there may be also other interesting species on the building as well. The species thrives on old log buildings, protected from direct sunlight and rainwater, and it is most common on the lowest logs of the building. Many Physolentia lucia grows on dusty buildings. So, for example, if you have a barn and it's next to a sand or dirt road, then there may be those. Before we had a lot of fences and poles made of wood out in the agricultural landscape, and it was a really good place, for example, for predator birds to sit on. And here you can see a butterfly that is nearly invisible on the pole. In old days, Everina mesmorpha liked to grow on wooden fences and log buildings. Many insect-eating birds, such as the starling and the nuthatch, look for food in the vicinity of pastures, and a wooden fence or stone fence is a really good place to sit on. On the picture there are actually two of them, so one of each. Birds find a good nesting place in a traditional wooden fence. Twig fences offer many good trapping spots for spiders. Here are some species that you often find on buildings that are not painted. They are lichens. And then there are also a few very endangered species. In old days we had also a lot of wooden roofs, and still some buildings have it. And there are some species that likes really much to grow on these wooden roofs. Wood shingle roofs used to be home of the lichen Letaria vulpina. It's now extinct in Finland. You can see it on the picture here to the right. And then there are different kinds of leaf and bush lichens who also thrives on roofs, as well as Caldonia. I had an old house, and it had this wooden shingle roof, and here you can see how many different species there was on one single shingle. And some more animals that like unpainted wood. Different types of jumping spiders, and then woodpeckers. They used to go looking for food and like to sit on wooden fences. And then there are various types of wasp and stingers. And longhorn beetles, they are beetles with this narrow body and long sensory horns. You can see it here on the picture to the right. And there are observations for more than 80 species of those in Finland. And also the ants like unpainted wood. And here is another one that likes unpainted wood. I don't know what species it is. We were talking before about shingle woods, but here is also another type of roof that we used to have in Finland. So it's kind of wooden material that has been splitted in two, and then the flat side is downwards and then the rounded side is upwards. Some countries, for example in Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania, they use a lot of straw roofs as well. And these are really filled up with different kinds of insects. So if you walk here a summer day, warm summer day, you can see a lot of different insects that are making nests in these kind of roofs. In the mountain area of Norway, they have traditionally had a birch bark on the roofs, and on that it has then been put some soil. So there starts to grow then trees and bushes and also different grasses and mosses and lichens. Here you can see a close-up picture of the mosses and the grasses and the lichens that have started to grow up on the birch bark. So domestic animals also like wooden materials, as wood is a pleasant and familiar material for them. Juniper has cleansing properties. Before wooden dishes were washed with boiling juniper water, it also disinfects, and in Norway it's still allowed to use this in dairy farming on summer farms in the mountains. Wood withstands the rough handling of animals much better and longer than plastic. Wood is also a renewable domestic raw material. And to the right you can see some chicken are eating from a wooden tray, and on the downwards picture somebody have made kind of apartment storage living flats for birds. And this is from far Karelia, today in Russia, and here you can see how these barns or outdoor buildings they have a nice roof, and there is then a kind of small veranda where dogs like to rest on. This is a small dog house that I spotted once in Lithuania. It was in the open air museum, and it's very nice because if the dog are inside, then it can just put its nose out through that hole, and when it then presses to head out, then these two parts of this kind of wooden door, they are going to their own sides, and then the dog can pass and come out. Here is a traditional old sauna from Finland, an old picture, if I remember correctly, it was from Janakkala. And you can see the well next to the sauna, and they have made a water tube out of a half wood trunk, and when they lift up the water they can just pull it over in this pipe there, and it goes into the sauna. So it's not so long time back when we had all the water outdoors, and the wells were outdoors, and also in the cow stables we were cooling down the milk in water basins, and then there was a very close relationship with different kinds of frogs. Here you can see the common toad, bufo bufo. It is very homesteady, so to say. They can live very high age, tens of years, and they don't like to move that much around as they are a little bit slow. So they are there where they live now. And you can then meet them. They are mostly night active. But before, the wells provided then a lot of water, and always was falling a little bit water outside the well also, so there was really nice and wet conditions for those animals who liked these wet conditions. Barn residents. So we used to have a lot of barns because we were storing a lot of hay for the winter. And some insects, for example butterflies, they can warm themselves on barn walls, so it was very common to see them resting there. Hares, foxes, martens, weasels and other small animals enjoy themselves around the barns as well. On the picture here you can see a yellow-faced bee, and that one could also make nests in the wood, and there are then different species of them. It's also called the masked bee. Some more barn residents. Ectemnius species looks like wasps. They are imitating them. And then there is a mason wasp to the right up. And then down here is an insect that I didn't find any name in English, but in Latin we have the name Chrysis angustula. Many insects are specialized on different types of plants, so like on one plant species. And here you can see one insect that is specialized on campanula plants, so bellflowers here. And then there is another one that is specialized on Ranunculus acris. You can see the photo of it here to the right, the yellow small flower. They are very common in pastures. And then here is one more, Femfredon lugens. It is a fairly common species that preys on aphids, which indeed nests in the trunks of dead trees and in the walls of old log buildings. In wide open spaces with open fields around, the common crestel likes to live. And here you can see somebody have made a nest for it on an old red painted barn. All the color is faded away already. This bird used to be common before, but at some point it started to come back again in southern Finland and also in western Finland. But it needs places to make nests in these open spaces. And as we have less and less barns, because nowadays we are not doing this dried hay anymore, we are doing these big round balls, then we don't need these buildings, and these buildings then tend to break down and not being renovated because they have no use. And in that way also the common kestrel will not have a place to stay. On some old buildings there are stone roofs of tiles, and the common swift likes very much to nest in such places. How do we then pay attention to lichens and insects? First of all, we should build from wood. It's possible. Leave the building or structure untreated. You don't have to paint it. Take care of the buildings, repair if necessary. Don't tear them down. Use the old building material to your advantage. Leave some of the wood if you are replacing or building a new one from an old one. If you are building a new shingle roof, transfer some shingles from the old shingle roof to the new shingle roof as well, because potential species can thus spread to the new roof as well. Do not paint too often. The entire wall does not need to be painted. Less worn wall can be left unpainted. Thin the paint. Don't use a sprayer when painting. There is no reason to paint an unpainted building or structure. European hornet, Vespa crabro, and look how nice nest it has been building, and it is using wood as a building material, so it is chewing on it and you get these kinds of structures.